Welcome to the second installment of the Cranky Centipede board. First one, we replaced a video RAM chip that cleared up some of our screen garbage. And it's still doing some weird shit, so let's figure out what we're going to do today. So, it's doing some weird things, like the shooter is shooting himself. And every time you shoot a centipede part, it's giving us 600 points, supposedly. Unless it's just like pulling up some garbage or unintended graphics data and displaying it improperly. It's not going away, it's just kind of staying there, so I think it's just malfunctioning. You also got the switch block in there so I can activate free play. So we're going to figure out whether this Centipede's actually scoring 600 points, because if it was, that would indicate a program issue or like a ROM issue, like the program is corrupted and it's like doing things it's not supposed to. Before, it was actually going up and down, but it stopped going up and down again, so I'm only able to go left or right. So I shot a centipede part, give us 15 points. Must have hit something else. It should give us 10, but 600 points for this centipede. Yeah, so that's it. Everything right there is scoring fine, so it's definitely not an issue like that. So it's definitely some sort of graphics addressing or RAM or something, maybe. I'm not totally sure. Let's figure it out. So my explanation of the video hardware in the last video wasn't quite the whole story, obviously. That was just for like the background titles, or tiles, not titles. So right over here we have the addressing, then we got the memory, then we got the multiplexer, and this is the video ROMs. It takes all the data given to it and turns it into like the video graphics, and then it's switched out to this crap, the motion object circuitry, which decides whether there's a object in front of the background graphics or not, and if there is, it will write that over whatever this right here tells the video output circuitry to write. So there's something going on here where the wrong objects are being written to the motion object circuitry. How does that access the, well, I guess this right here is how it accesses the video ROMs for getting the motion object graphics data. Anyway, so something in here is probably not functioning quite right. I don't think it's something to do with this RAM here, unless there's something wrong with these adders or whatever the data goes into. It might be adding one too many to something or other and causing the wrong graphics to be drawn. So I guess the small brain thing, which I feel like doing, is just to poke around on all these chips and look for anything unusual with a logic analyzer. No, not logic analyzer. You know, I took a nap and I really feel like it, so I have to get some of that stuff. But this thing here, logic probe. It doesn't analyze, it probes. Say hello. So I did some more looking at the schematics and the theory of operation stuff, reading that and trying to follow along and understand what's going on here. And I think my problem has to be definitely within this area right here. And this is what determines if there is a motion object on a vertical line. Yeah, on a vertical line. So it detects whether there is one or is not, and if there is one, then it will tell the video picture data ROM circuitry here during the horizontal blank whether there is one or not, and then it will access the these address bits here and here, and output the data for the picture of the motion object down into this memory here. So if there is something on the vertical line, this right here tells the ROM what to load. So obviously we're getting the wrong data from this stuff right here in order to make it so you know, I'm got the 600 points floating around in the shooter shooting the wrong object. So I'm pretty sure that something right here is wrong, and I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be the data coming in, because if the data coming in was bad, that would mean that the data coming into the RAM is bad, which we know is good now. And if that was the case, then if one of these data lines was bad, then everything else would be completely screwed up. I used the logic probe to make sure that these data lines are actually correct. These ones would have to be correct, otherwise you wouldn't get any motion objects at all. These ones right here select which object it is, basically. So something in here is not working correctly. I'll go over it again with the logic probe to make sure nothing's stuck, and if I don't find anything particular, I'll just use this thing. This thing's the Super Pro Zeltec ROM burner dealy bopper, and it also tests some discrete logic chips, so I'm guessing that I could test these adders and this flip-flop if I need to, and this multiplexer chip right here if I need to. So I could pull all this stuff out and test if I really desire. So something here is not quite right. So unfortunately, this Zeltec thing here does not test the adders. So what I'm going to do to test the two adders, these two are identical chips. I'm going to socket those and swap them around and see if anything changes. And if nothing changes, then I will I will pull that one and test those in the Zeltec. I think those will be compatible, since that's just a flip-flop and a multiplexer. So I'll test those two. Our problem has to be in here somewhere. Well, that was a bit more of a disaster than I thought it would be. I had a bit of trouble getting those things out of there. The pair of trays and a pad that I sucked up with my soldering or desoldering gun. Those chips don't like to come out, which is very different compared to these. I think the legs on these are a little bit more bent outwards, so they're soldered more onto the outside of the holes, and also the pins are a little bit more malleable, so they don't quite come off as easy. So hopefully I didn't kill any by means of heat, so let's see what this thing does. No, I didn't do shit. So it wasn't the adders. I know I've replaced, I swapped these around, so I wonder what happens if you run it without one. Let's not do that though. So that means there's something else going wrong here. And actually, I was looking at it. Some of the pins on the back are all mashed up. Let me get this out of here real quick. I was looking at it, and a bunch of these pins are all kind of splayed all over the place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look through all of them and make sure nothing's touching where it shouldn't be. So I got to looking at it some more. I took out all the ICs that are related to the vertical motion object circuit and tested them all, and that did absolutely nothing. They all tested good. I swapped the two adders around and nothing changed, so there's nothing wrong with those. So I've been looking around. I put this back in the cabinet to see if I could notice anything different about it. I went to the test screen, and I noticed that it was missing half of its motion objects as I was cycling through them in the test screen, and some of them were kind of screwed up to where it looked like the two ROMs were outputting two different images, which makes the colors not line up, and things were a little bit goofy. So I just started looking around on the ROMs because it seemed like they were outputting something completely different. And if you look right here, you have some all the lines here, the address lines are all common between the two. And I did finally find something that was different between them. Address bit 9, pin 22, or no, address bit 10, pin 19. It's got some AND gate between this and some other crap, and it makes I don't know, something to do with 256H, and it goes to pin 19 on both of these, and I think those might be some sort of capacitor. I don't know what the heck that symbol is, but no, wait, okay, never mind. That one should be ground, shouldn't it? There's something different going on here. I might have to get the good board out and test that. I'm not entirely sure, but I know one thing for sure is that when you look at it on the scope, if I go take this 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, now it displays a waveform there. If I go to the other ROM, go pin 19, there's nothing. So I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be. F7 is the one that's by the ground here. I'm not entirely sure what that symbol is. I'll have to do a little bit more looking into that. So what I think those symbols are pads that you can solder and desolder from each other to change the circuit. And looking at the you can see them right here. Those are the pads. And looking at the circuit on the schematic, these two pins on the two ROMs should be identical with each other. And so I started beep testing it, and this one was just kind of floating. I couldn't get it to test continuity with all this over here. And I think I found the problem. That right there, cut trace, that one right next to the big fat trace. So I'll jump that together, and I think that problem will be solved, and all that will be left is the control issue. Alright, I soldered a little piece of wire onto there, and we're going to throw it into the cabinet, because I've obviously haven't tested this on the test monitor. Duh. We're going to have a surprise. Alright, our fixer-upper Centipede's in the cabinet. Fire it up. See what it looks like. Okay, let's not do that. Come on. Oh yeah. That's looking a lot better now. That's looking a lot closer to working. But it's still having control issues. But considering it was just a broken trace that was causing all those motion object issues, I'm going to take a guess, since the entire underside of that board's all beat up, that the control issues are also caused by bad traces. So I'm going to take a look at that real quick and see if I can just slap that together, and if we can, then this thing is good to go. So it's time to get to the bottom of this trackball business. Here we have the trackball circuitry. These are the inputs from the trackball, and it goes through all this stuff into this multiplexer, which controls between whether your first or second trackball is controlling the character, and that's used for the cocktail. That is indicated by the flip line here, which activates the second trackball. And so this half is the horizontal, this half is the vertical, and we're having problems with the horizontal, and it only goes one direction. Since it only moves one direction, and it is moving somewhere, that indicates that this the clock to this counter is working. This line right here has to be working, because well, if it didn't, it wouldn't move at all, and this counter would not turn up or count up. So what our issue seems to be is somewhere along this line here, this crap right here for the horizontal direction, which alternates between going up and down on the counter. So somewhere in here it's not working. So right now I got the game in the cabinet, and I got it clipped onto this pin right here, and this is the clock. This is working, so this is what it looks like when it's working. I got it in test mode. There's the scope. I'm going to flick the ball. You can see that it's counting when I move the trackball, and that's what it's supposed to be doing. But if we go over here, and well, actually, we're going to go to pin 9 on D11. So that's, what pin's that? What? Was it pin 9 on D11? This really requires two hands. So stick that on pin 9 on D11, which should be the direction, not the clock. So this should only actuate if I'm rolling the ball to the right. We got nothing. So I'm rolling the ball to the right and it thinks we're rolling left. So we're going to trace it back and see where we can see where the signal stops. Well, it appears this chip right here is my problem. And so it's very intermittent. So I started right here, and obviously that wasn't working. I traced it back to here, 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 and here, and it was all nothing. No signal whatsoever. But then I checked right here on the other side of this, which is that chip I pointed out, the input side of that chip I pointed out, and I do get a signal there. And I compared it to the vertical direction signal right here, which is also, this one is working, and it's making the same kind of waveform as this one right here. So I think this chip right here is bad, and I'll have to order a new one, and that means I have to wait a week. And so about 4 or 5 days later, after I get the mail, I got a new chip right here and socketed it. So hopefully now when we fire it up, we'll have full trackball control and we can play Centipede on this spare Centipede board. Alright, here we go. Well, actually, we'll put in test mode because we're testing. Look at that, full trackball control. Whoop. Huh. Well, I can go left and right now, so that's good, but up and down is kind of funny. I stuck another chip in there for this one just to make sure that wasn't the problem, and it does not appear to be. So what it seems to be doing, or how this works, I guess, is that, well, this switches between, I probably already said this before, switches between the first and second trackball. You got a clock and then a direction. So the up and down right now is definitely getting a clock, so it's moving regardless of whether we're going up and down, but it's just sometimes it doesn't go up when it needs to be. And I think that's when this is supposed to be high and that starts counting down or something like that. So you'll see that it outputs 4 bits to the computer. You know, read those 4 bits to determine which direction it's going to go. And well, with those 4 bits, I was looking at the test screen again, and the test screen is handy. So I was looking at the numbers change when you move the trackball. You can see the 4 bits, this one here, there, there, and there, are the 4 for the horizontal. The bottom bit down here is for which direction you're moving. So if I'm going to move it left, it remains a 0, and it counts up. And when you move right, it turns, the bottom one turns into a 1, and it starts counting down. And so, just by looking at that, we can tell that all 4 bits are good on the counter. So if you go up and down, you can go down, and it's counting through all 4 bits, so that's working right. If you go up, it starts doing some weird stuff, so I'm wondering. So either our counter is not counting correctly when it's going down, or this latch right here is not latching our direction bit or the up-down bit into the counter. So how am I going to determine which it is? I'm going to put my my oscilloscope on this line right here, and if I'm moving up, it should always constantly be high or low, whichever one it is. And if it's constantly high without breaking when I'm moving the ball up, then that means that this is working correctly, and then this is not counting correctly. And if this starts blinking around and doing weird stuff, not latching the data from this, maybe the data from this isn't good. I'll have to look at that too. Maybe it's not quite or it's not selecting the right data lines. It's sometimes selecting this one for some reason. Maybe I'll have to check that out. So I'll probably scope this out right here. Although, yeah, I'll scope that out and look at the waveform and make sure it's not like sketchy, I guess. And then I'll look at this one and make sure it stays high like it's supposed to. So I got the analog scope out to give me more of a immediate sort of look at what's going on. It doesn't have to process anything, so it's a lot faster. So I'm looking at the signal coming out of that multiplexer. I want to make sure that it's a pretty even waveform. See, if I move down for some reason, this is the direction. It looks pretty smooth to me, although every once in a while there's like one that's being missed, it seems like. If I move up, it's like got a bunch of missing pulses. So I'm wondering if that chip is bad, but we'll look at the input going into that chip. And this thing is all wobbly looking in it. We'll look at the inputs going into that chip and make sure that that's not the problem first. So we're looking at pin 4, so we'll look at pin 2 instead. So let's go do that. Get my headlamp going. There we go, pin 2. So this should be the incoming from the trackball. It's also kind of iffy, ain't it? We'll look at the horizontal to compare. So now looking at the horizontal, if I move it smoothly, you can see that there are no dropped pulses. So the problem is definitely coming from before that multiplexer. Maybe my trackball is going to shit. Maybe I'm going to pop in my good board. I think my trackball might have shit itself. So with my good board, you can see the trackball works perfectly fine if I point the camera at the screen. So that's not the problem. The problem is definitely with the board. So we'll look at more of that. So looking at the schematic, I guess what we could do is check what's coming into that and make sure that waveform is good. Make sure that waveform looks all right. And if that's not all right, then there's something between here and there that's bad. So it's probably like a passive component, like a capacitor or the resistor. I'm not entirely sure what this is. Is this some sort of like pull-up deal? That's connected to all the lines, so I don't think there's anything wrong with that, whatever that does. Otherwise, you'd have the problems on all the lines. So, since they're all hooked up to, well, this one, that one, and that one. So, let's check that, and then I guess from there we'll have to check that and all this. So I was thinking about it some more, and well, up and down used to work just fine on this board. It was just the left and right that were having problems until I replaced this chip. But maybe I started looking at the waveforms coming into the backside of that chip, and the voltage seems to be pretty low peak to peak. So I'm wondering if it's just not getting the voltage high enough to drive the chip high into the multiplexer. So I got it hooked up to my scope. I got my scope set up, or set up as close as this thing can be to being set up. I got it set up to where one of these squares is 5 volts, as seen here, you know. I don't know if I should be on DC or AC. I have no idea. I'm done. But you can see the voltage is pretty low on it. And after unplugging and plugging it in a couple times, this actually started behaving a little better. So I wonder if I just have poor connectors going to my trackball, and for some reason the chip on the other board doesn't mind as much. Let me undo this. Oh, yeah, that thing gets bent down into place, don't it? So let's clean up some of this stuff. I know I've reflowed these because that can be a problem. So I'm gonna clean up all the connectors, deoxit the shit out of all this potential voltage drop nonsense, and then we'll go from there. So I went in and sprayed deoxit on the connectors, and let's see what happens. No, still kind of the same deal. Yeah, I wonder. So I was looking at the data sheet for that the chip I replaced, and I guess the the voltage, if it's over a volt, then it should activate it at 5 volts, which we're running it at. And so our 2 volts up or high and low on the input to that, if we go over here, I got it set up right now for 1 volt per division, and if we move the trackball, it's about 2 volts. I'm guessing the reason why there's that voltage drop is due to the transistors in there, or for like the opto whatever the hell's. So I got it coming, or that signal coming off directly off this trackball. So you can see if I move it slightly, and it starts opening up that window, it'll start slowly opening up that transistor and giving the board voltage. So I can just kind of barely move the ball and see the voltage go up and down, which is kind of neat. So yeah, I'm guessing the reason why there's that chip there that we replaced, it was to turn this into more of a digital signal for the computer to use rather than this analog kind of on and off sort of deal. So there's like a threshold. So once it gets to about right there, or right about here, it's considered on, and then down here is off. So it'll turn that into like a 0 and 5 volt signal coming out of that chip. So that should be fine. So I'm guessing the only thing left is just maybe just either a somewhat iffy counter or latch. So I'm not really feeling like playing with it today so much to try and figure all that out. I'll just throw all new crap into here. Yeah, this one. This is the vertical. I'll just throw those new chips in there, and then we'll call it good probably. So I was looking at the waveforms coming out of, or going into and out of that chip. So I did not change all this stuff. I changed this one. I removed the socket because I wondered if the socket was bad for that one. By the time I put this one in, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm being dumb. Why am I changing this stuff if I've seen on the scope that the problem is with this one here? So I removed its socket and soldered it in directly with a different chip from my little tube here, and it's still doing the same thing. So I took a little bit closer of a look with the oscilloscope of the input and the output pins on this one. So this is for the vertical clock. Here's the input, here's the output. Everything looks like it's working correctly. It's seeing the little peaks of the waveform, and it's swapping, or it's switching. But if we go to the one that's not working so well, for some reason the peaks and stuff are not quite as sharp, and obviously you can see that the peaks aren't like poking it in a way that makes it actually start switching like it's supposed to. So like this one and this, let's see, that and that got skipped, as you can see. So it's not pulsing right. So I started looking at all the passive components around it, because we know this is good. We know the trackball is good because it works on all the other stuff. And so something in here is not right. I was looking at R130 here. On this board, it looks like somebody dropped it going out of the car on a highway there. I don't know what this is all about. Somebody replaced these resistors and these resistors, and I don't know why. They're not the right value. The right value should be these resistors, or the ones that are on the floor right now. Those. And if I look up my good board, those resistors right here are the ones that the schematics say, but the ones that were installed here are not. All right, I've replaced those resistors for the first player control ball, and what do you know? Well, I tested it with my scope, and it's not perfect. That might be just a problem with my trackball that's affecting my good board as well, but I haven't noticed it because it hasn't been a problem. But it works. Works very nice. Alright, so that means one thing. There's only one more thing to do until this thing is completely done. And what that is to install the EA ROM, which is what saves your high scores. I took that out because it only has so many power cycles before those die. Will run out of memory inside. So you want to keep that out when troubleshooting. So now we can play a game of Centipede. So these are the chips replaced. You have the bad RAM from part 1. And then this guy right here, well, he's supposed to be right here, and it still works, so I might keep him around. Because I was getting a little bit annoyed, so I was like, I'm going to shotgun this. And then I was like, wait, I'm being stupid. I should not do that because I'll waste time. Like when I was testing all of these. And this one, which was actually bad, that goes right here. And replacing that made it so I can control the horizontal on my ball. So let's play some Centipede. Alright, now I can play a game of Centipede on the board we repaired. So here we go. It's Centipede. It's nice to see that this board is back in action. Oh, come on, I missed. Shit. That wasn't good. The Centipede was about to reach the bottom anyway. I was gonna say I haven't seen a... Oh shit. I haven't seen a slug yet. There we go. Or is that a scorpion? I can't know. And that spider's getting really aggressive. I should have got a second life. Maybe I did get a second life, and I haven't noticed it yet. Or not yet, I just haven't noticed it. Wait. There we go. More lives. wants to put mushrooms in my zone. I'm just not having it though. Oh shit. I'm not hitting anything. Oh, this is where the fun starts. I kind of like the mushroom explosion stuff after you die. It kind of reminds me of like an EM game resetting. It has that similar feel to it. Oi, get away from me. Alright. Hell yeah. Well, that's a fixed centipede.